Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I was in my local Big Lot store recently and sort of browsing through some of the action figures that they had. And they had one of those displayers up with all the Olympus series Hasbro products, which they include things like Marvel characters, some Star Wars, some G.I. Joe figures, and they're all done sort of in the same scale, roughly 9 inches tall for most of the characters. And they're not really too great in terms of the articulation, but the sculpting on them is actually pretty good. And I've reviewed several of them on the channel, including the Din Djarin figure. So I have that in my collection, and I've reviewed it in a previous video. And so I had never seen this one. So this is Grogu. And the interesting thing about it does not seem to be in scale with the other ones. It seems to be more of a 1/6 scale figure because if you put it side by side with Din Djarin, Grogu seems to be much too big to be in scale with Mando. This intrigued me a lot because in order to get a 1/6 scale version of Grogu, the only ones that I'm aware of are offered as high-end collectibles, so you're going to end up paying quite a bit more than what I paid for this, which was $9.99. So pretty reasonable in terms of, an expenditure, and the detail on it is quite good too. The head sculpt looks pretty solid, and in spite of the fact that it doesn't have a lot of articulation, he does come with the hover pram. So that's a pretty cool accessory to come with this figure. So overall, I think it's a reasonable price to pay for what you're actually getting. And it isn't the first time that they've actually been off in terms of the scale on this particular Olympus series. In a previous video, I reviewed the Darth Vader figure. This is the figure I'm talking about. So this figure, because he stands, roughly, 9 inches tall, he's not in scale with the other 9-inch tall figures because Darth Vader is much taller in stature than other characters. So this figure is actually more along the lines of a 1/9 scale figure, which makes it in line with my Mego action figure collection. So, in terms of scale, it often works out quite well when they get the scale wrong on some of these things. So, and that is the case here with Grogu. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the package, and I'm going to pair it up with one of my 1/6 scale action figures to show you pretty much how it kind of is more in line with a 1/6 scale figure. So let's go ahead and get this out of the package. Okay, so we got this figure out of the package now. I want to show you what the back of the package looks like, just in case you're curious. You can see there's an image of Grogu here on the back, and I also give just a brief write-up on his character, and they also show how the hover pram is assembled. It comes in 2 parts, and you can see the date on this is 2022. So, I believe this is brand new as a release, and I think they did a pretty good job just in terms of the overall sculpting and so forth on this figure. Looks pretty cool. Pretty good detail on the head sculpt and everything. And the outfit looks pretty cool as well. There's a little bit of a mismatch between the color of the sleeves and the rest of his outfit, but it's not too bad. I think it's okay. And in terms of articulation, like I mentioned, these have very limited articulation. You pretty much just get a spin at the shoulder and also a pivot at the head. I don't think there's any back and forth movement at the head. It might be on a ball joint, but just because of how his head is kind of squished down into his outfit, there's really no way to move it other than just side-to-side movement. And on the bottom of this, you can see some sculpted detail of where the feet would be, but there aren't any actual feet on this figure. And you can see the date on this is also printed on there, 2022. So I believe this is a brand new release. I don't think this is necessarily recycled from any previous releases. It looks pretty good. And in terms of the hover pram, I can show you the details on that. So you can see a lot of sculpted detail on the interior. And all you have to do is sort of push this piece onto 2 little pegs that are on either side, and it kind of completes the look of it. And again, the date on the bottom of this one, also 2022. So I believe this is a brand new release. I don't think this is reissued from any previous toy line. Looks pretty good, and Grogu will fit in the hover pram just fine. So you can see you can set him in there, and he won't fit all the way underneath the cover because his ears kind of clash against that. But in terms of looking to scale and looking to size, I think they did a decent job in terms of executing this. So that looks pretty cool overall. And I want to bring in one of my 1/6 scale action figures so I can show you in terms of scale how this actually works. So here you can see my 12-inch tall Luke Skywalker action figure. And as you can see, Grogu is roughly the height of Luke's boot. So roughly, you know, a little over 2 inches tall, maybe 2¼ inches, roughly that tall. So I think that's pretty close to being in scale with a 12-inch scale Luke Skywalker. So very happy that they made this mistake. Maybe they did it on purpose so they can eventually reuse this in the context of a 1/6 scale action figure line. I'm not really too sure, but you know, whether it was a mistake or whether it was done intentionally, I'm very happy about it because I now have a 1/6 scale version of Grogu in my collection for my Star Wars toys. That's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more reviews of Star Wars action figures in the future, think about subscribing to my channel because I will be covering a lot more of this kind of stuff in future videos. Until next time, I hope you're having a great day, and may the Force be with you. Thanks for watching.